All right, this episode is with a longtime friend, Cody Jenkins of the Whitetail Legacy Podcast, and we talk about his transition from public land to private land and some things that he keeps in mind while hunting, including some really good trail camera strategies. So I hope you guys enjoy this. Here we go. I think it sounds like you've had a lot of transitions, and one of those is we were talking. The last few years, you guys pounded public like crazy, and you guys ran a lot of cameras. You were hunting a lot of big deer as well. So it was a lot of work, but a lot of opportunities to chase deer. And so this year we were talking, there's been a little bit of a paradigm shift there where you've decided to maybe go towards more private. And I'm curious why that is. In a world where, whether we want to admit it or not, hunting public, it's an excellent opportunity. I think it's a great thing, but it's also, I think, sometimes just a buzzword, whether we want to realize it or not. I mean, I think anyone that runs a podcast or runs any sort of media content, they understand that if you put the word public in front of whatever title, you're going to get more listens. And I assume that's just because it's more relatable. But in reality, I would say your approach to private's probably equally as relatable to everybody. So I just want to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah. So the main, there's multiple reasons why I'm going to, when I say I'm not hunting public, I still have all this in the bank. I still have all this years, all these encounters, all this trail cam data. And if I got a day where I'm just like, yeah, let's go. I know where to go. I know where to go on these public lands to get these encounters with these giant bucks. But I have the mystery back of not knowing what's out there, which is so cool. Like the buck I was chasing last year, I can only fathom how big that deer is. Like when I think about how typical and how big that deer is, I'm just like, I can't even think about it because it's going to weigh me so hard. But I don't have any trail cam pictures of him, so I don't know if he's alive. I'm just going in there in his zone and hunting if I feel like it, you know? Yeah. And the main reason is I got more private ground, just straight up. I put the work in, sent letters, knocked doors. And the ground that I picked up was actually a no. 3 years later turned into a yes. Wow. It was a no for a couple years. You know, I always hit people a couple years, respectably, just let them know I'm looking for something. And what happened was I went to his son's graduation party, and he was like, hey, I need some deer shot. Would you like to come hunt this? And I was like, yeah. And I got one piece. And then it kind of turned into, hey, there's a fence line out here that I need to rebuild. I need some help clearing it out, setting some hedge posts. He knew that I grew up in Missouri on a cattle farm. I went out there, spent, multiple days with him doing that. He was like, there's no problems the first year with me out there hunting. I killed deer like he wanted, got deer out. Killed some does, basically like a nuisance permit doe tag for this year. I've already went out and killed a doe this year with a crop reduction tag or whatever. And that was interesting. I've never shot a deer that
I didn't even know that was a thing in Illinois.
Yeah. It's a thing that you have to send into the state, and you get a head tag, and it's basically like a nuisance tag, and they let you go out and kill a doe. And the conservation department gives you they give you some tags, and they tell you how you should kill doe wise. And they said that he should kill 20 does. And I'm like,
gosh,
I don't know how they come up with the numbers for that, but that seems like an astronomical amount. But we got two nuisance permits. And I think it's more of like, if you fill these next year, we potentially give you more. Like, are you just asking for these, or do you really want to use them? So I went out and killed a doe, doing all that with the extra work, being nice to him. He needed some property lines mapped out. The neighbors were logging. I went out there and helped him map out the property with stakes, using Onyx for the line, something that guy he's an old farmer. He had no idea. He's just going off, and he actually gained like 7 acres of timber he didn't even know was his. And I was like, oh, here's the old property stake, going off Onyx. He's like, oh, the neighbors had a 4-wheeler trail through there and all kinds of stuff, and that was his, and he had no idea. They just kind of been using it for forever. And he was just like, I was just going off the old cattle fence. And I'm like, well, here's your old stake out here, you know, and we found it. And doing all that, he opened the door to a couple other pieces. So I have a lot more private ground, but said private ground doesn't hold the quality of bucks that the public land does that I was hunting. So that's one reason. The other reason is, this is going to sound silly to a lot of guys, but the stress that you have when you've hunted a deer 80 or bigger for year after year after year, it weighs on you, and you kill less good deer because you're hunting that deer, and you're hunting in a very hard place to kill them. So your effort is really, really high, and your success is very, very low. Like 2 encounters to this deer is like a huge win. 1 encounter is like a huge win, you know? And I just got burnt out on it, man. Just the grind of hunting and hunting and hunting. And you're hunting places where you're like, okay, I'm probably going to see no other buck but this one buck, you know, and you're having junk hunts. You're not even seeing deer, but you think you're in the right area for this one buck. And it just weighs on you, just burns you out. And I just got burned out of the amount of work I was putting into the amount of reward. And I went back and looked at my history of bucks that I've killed. And it's private. And I've been hunting public for a long time, you know, on and off. It's not like I've just started. It's, I killed a buck on public back in like 2012. And then I killed another one 2020. But it's just like public buck, or private buck, private. My success is on the private. I know that game. I'm out there trying to kill these bucks on public because they're bigger, for one, but for also, it's straight up for the street cred. And I'll be honest to say it. When you're a person in the outdoor content creation, if you are releasing an episode where you're talking about how to deer hunt, you got to have some credibility of deer hunting. And a guy can go out and kill giants, solid bucks, giants on private land, and he doesn't get the credibility as doing it on public land. It's just not for the guy out there listening. And a lot of guys won't say this, just straight up. They won't say it, but I will. I was looking to kill a buck on public, a giant, to get the credibility to go further in the outdoor industry, just straight up. And I got roped into, man, there's a giant, and we almost killed him. Next year, oh, he's even bigger. We almost kill him. Now we're on another giant. And I'm talking like 180 plus inch.
Really big deer. Yeah.
Really big deer, you know, and we're finding them, and we're on them, and we're encountering them on video, you know, and we're just so close to killing them. And that's what it was. And now my desire is to release podcast episodes, film my son hunt, and, you know, me hunt just kind of together. And I don't have the desire to grow myself as like a name in the hunting industry as I did before. I was looking to be, I knew I'd never be able to make a career out of it, but I wanted there to be substantial incentive to where I could take more time off of work and travel to Ohio, travel to Iowa, travel out west, and, you know, and maybe either get some of the hunts paid for or partially paid for, and be able to take the time off of work without the wife absolutely, you know, destroying my face, you know? So that's another reason why I quit hunting public. And just the stress, man, the stress of there's other guys out there hunting the deer. I need to be out there. This is a giant deer. It's once in a lifetime deer. I got to be out there. This guy knows he's alive. You know, he's hunting, you know, you know, he's going to kill him. I'm not going to kill him. Now I'm hunting private with other guys. They don't hunt near as hard as the guys on public, not even on the same planet. There's guys out there that are just dogs that hunt harder than I do. They're just absolute animals. And I'm competing with them, and it was stressful, dude.
Dude, I get it.
You kind of seen the ground that we were hunting, you know, kind of the humid side of it, and it's just awkward, hard ground. Man, it's not
The,
fun. Nothing fun
the
about
deer
it.
have. I just feel like the deer have every advantage in that type of
They
terrain
have
out there.
so much. They have so much ground to live in that you cannot hunt. You're literally just hunting the buffer edge and praying that they come out of there 100 yards so you can hunt them. Like that's literally what you're doing. It's not a fun game to me anymore. It was fun in the past. So that would be the multiple reasons why I'm not hunting public. Stress, not a desire to prove myself anymore, and having a whole bunch more private ground. So,
would you change the last 3 or 4 seasons in any way now, or are you glad that you did it? So you appreciate what you're doing now more.
I learned a ton about that ground, and I had an ass load of fun because I had another hunting buddy that I was out there with, learning together. But what's funny is you take everything from that piece of ground and you try to put it on the private. It doesn't work. It's not. I reverted back to where I hunted freeze. Same strategy, same camera kind of placement, and the bucks are there. It's just like I know what I'm doing on the private. I know how to kill them on the private. I know how to find them on the private. If the bucks are there on the private ground, I got a really good chance of killing them. The bucks are there on the public land. It's juggling out there. I'm in the game. Every day is a new adventure.
Yeah, for sure. And so I totally, I can, I have some empathy towards that because I do understand where you're coming from. So I think in terms of what is different, how is your strategy different on the private versus the public when you mentioned how to find them on private and how to kill them on private. So is it just a lot more straightforward? Like the deer are doing what they're supposed to when you look at them?
Yeah, deer are doing what they're supposed to do. The deer are people aren't going to like it, but public land is straight up harder to kill bucks. Just straight up. If you have private ground, even if it has a little bit of pressure, it does not have the pressure of public. Just doesn't have it. You got, just like my urban piece. I'm running cams out on my urban piece. There's 48 hunters. I know exactly how many hunters there are on that piece because they give out pamphlets. Everybody has to sign in. You know exactly where everybody's hunting. It's weird. I get more pictures of dudes than I do deer on that property. It's just incredible, and that's 48. So if you're on a big piece of public, how many guys do you think during a year are on that? It's got to be 100 plus, and you have no idea. This guy's got 30 cams. This guy's got 4 cams. This guy's pulling cams every week. This guy's scouting these guys are preaching. They're scouting everything, every week and trying to find the hot sign. And you have no control over anything. I know who's hunting the private with me. I know kind of how they hunt after hunting with them for a year. I know how to kind of use that to my advantage now. There's no dog coming in that's going to hunt 3 times as hard as me. I'm going to be the hardest hunter out there. I know that. And the bucks do big buck stuff. For example, you have a bottom, a creek bottom. You have a transition zone, real thick to open oaks. You put a cam there, I guarantee you, if there's a solid buck in the area, he's going to be on that cam. It's going to be daylight, maybe not, but more than likely he's going to be if he's bedding in that thing. Now you do that on public, they might be there, they might not be. They might be in a bush out in the middle of a CRP field living because that's the only place they're safe. But these bucks in the Midwest do the same exact thing. You get a pinch on private. You get an inside corner on private. There's more than likely going to be a scrape there, and you're going to get pictures of bucks on that scrape. You do that on public, there's probably a cam already on that scrape and a stand already there, and you have no idea when they're hunting that, and that inside corner is nighttime only, more than likely. It's just 2 completely different worlds. The bucks still kind of do the same thing in the rut, but outside of the rut, 2 different animals. And the hunting of the deer on private, you can get away with way more. You can hang lower. You can hang, in awkward spots with no back cover. I cannot do that. can't even get past the does on the public. Even the ground scent, you can get away with more. You can go hang a cam on video mode on private, and those deer haven't been pressured by people as much, so you can get away with even more scent on private than I think you can. They don't react on the camera like they do on public. It's just like they've associated that scent with danger so much quicker in their life than they have on private land, especially private where you're like the private that I'm hunting. No one's killing bucks. I got all the same bucks that I had last year. So that tells me that there's probably hunters out there, but these deer are outsmarting these hunters, and they're probably not encountering them a lot if they're living, year after year. So that's just a straight up truth. It's for me, private's way easier. They just do what they're supposed to do. They just do big buck stuff.
So. Do you this will put you on the hot seat here. Do you think that too many people try to do it for like hunt specific styles or ways for 100%. The clout versus just doing it because they truly want to or whatever the case may be?
And I've fell down that rabbit hole of trying different things, doing different things. And if it works and you like it, keep doing it. If it doesn't work, stop trying to pound it to make it work. Like me hunting public, I'm going in there, I'm doing completely different stuff, hunting different ways, and I'm not successful. I go back to hunting scrapes on private in October, boom, kill. I go back to hunting beds early October on private, boom, I kill. Like I know how I can be successful. So until I'm good, I'm okay with like I'm not going to kill anything, and I'm going to spend years restyling myself to be able to kill on this ground. It's just way better for me to go there and do what I'm good at. And I feel like that's what in my theory, like say a guy, he wants to hunt public and start killing bucks. Great. But he has this inside corner bean field on private that he's had really good success at. He's had opportunities. Never don't hunt that inside corner and go try to kill a buck on public. Go where your bread and butter is, kill a buck, then say, okay, now I'm going to go pound the pavement on public and try to get it done. But I feel like there's a lot of people that were in the same zone as me, but are afraid to say it. They want the credibility of killing a giant on public if they're in the outdoor industry, or even if they're not. It's the cool thing to do. It is harder. 100% it is harder. So you can get credibility, but like I said, in the rut, the bucks do buck stuff on public, just like they do on private. The ruts, you hunt the rut like you're supposed to hunt the rut. It's just its own animal. But in October, when I've killed a lot of my bucks, it's two different games, and I'm better at the private game. I'm better at the less pressured bucks. And I feel like most people would be, but they either don't have the private, which I think that's a lot of time not the case. They choose the public because they want the adventure and they want to be able to say that they killed it on public land, straight up. And I just don't have that desire anymore.
I think a lot of it's probably just an age thing too. I think there's a lot of those guys that fall into that. I mean, would you say your late 20s is kind of when you were like that?
Yeah, and I could see that. People are younger. You have that drive. You have that energy. I had less kids. I had way more time, and the public it takes twice as long, in my opinion. There's twice as much ground you got to explore. You need to run twice as much cam to understand what's actually going on there. You need to hunt twice as much in different areas to understand how the deer even travel in the area. But that's not to say that you find a sweet spot in October, late October, and you can go out there and kill a buck rut style. You can get that done. But I've consistently killed bucks on private land way better than I have on public. So I'm missing opportunities going on public when I should be on private, hunting the way that I've hunted forever. And it's way less stressful, man. It's just like I'm not waking up at 5 a.m., biking in, unloading all my shit, hanging my stand, pulling cams on the way out, and not seeing any deer. Like it's just like,
Yeah.
oh
Well, I think it's important to have fun, and I think if for anyone that does enjoy that challenge and enjoys that process, and truly that's what keeps their fire going, I think that's fine and dandy. But let's talk about some of your October success, because I think if you went to an archery shop and you stood there all day on Saturday and you had a little a clipboard and a little checklist, do you like hunting bucks in the first half of October? You ask 100 people there, they're gonna 99 or maybe 95% are gonna be like, nah, give me November. And I think you're the opposite of that. Is that right?
yeah, I like early October in certain situations. It is by far it's the most enjoyable time to hunt. The weather's the nicest. It's beautiful out. You're just getting into the groove of hunting. Anticipation's high. You got new bucks on cam, and with the right situation, you can kill in October. It's the October lull is such a overrated thing. But on public, I seen it, dude. It's like a light switch. These deer were close to daylight. They get a little pressure, they're done. And I just think that they can handle way less than they can on private land. And you have no control over what the outcome is out there. But I've killed a buck. We killed a buck the first day opening season 2 years ago. We killed a buck. I killed two on October 15th within 45 minutes of each other, opposite years. I killed one the first week. I can't remember, maybe the 7th or 8th. And that's with all like the last 4 or 5 years, and everybody's like, oh, got a buck down. I'm like, if you have an area, the two that I killed in October 15th, like 45 minutes apart from each other, were 75 yards difference.
Different years.
Yeah, different years. I mean, it's like you got the spot, different bucks, different, just different, doing completely different things, but you're in the spot. One thing that I love about that time of year that a lot of people don't think about is, what is every farmer doing that time of the year?
Picking crops, getting ready to pick crops. Yep.
And they're pushing deer like crazy. People wonder why they get a whole bunch of new bucks that time of year. And people are like, oh, they're going to their rut area. Now,
they're getting pushed off the hedgerow they spent all summer on.
The spot that they're hiding out in the middle of nowhere in between corn. They can't bed out there anymore. They don't feel secure. They don't have a corn forest of hundreds of acres to live in.
Yep.
A lot of these deer have water holes out in those waterways. And people are like, man, I'm getting a lot more bucks on cam. They must be on the acorns, or they must be getting to the rut zone. They're getting pushed. And that's how I killed one of the bucks October 15th. I had pictures of this deer going to bed early. I'm like, okay, he's got to be living over there on the neighbors picking corn. Where am I going? I'm going directly to where, if that deer gets bumped out of the corn, which direction is he coming onto my property if he comes? Went in there, hung. I killed that deer so early in the day. I was in the stand for 25 minutes, and he comes cruising in on a jog, and I grunted that deer in October 15th. He's not in his core area. So if you get a deer that gets bumped off like that, one that you maybe have a couple pictures of but isn't one of your core bucks, they're very susceptible to calls, grunting, snort, wheezing. That's not their core area, they don't know exactly what bucks are in that area. And if they're an older, mature buck, they're more than likely going to be aggressive. So that's what happened. This deer got bumped off that cornfield. Literally, I could hear the combines going. I know he's coming right out of there. He's on a trot. And I'm the closest timber to that cornfield and that waterway draw with trees in it. So I'm thinking, if he's coming, he's going to come right in here. He's bailing across the open CRP field right into my timber, hops the fence at 15 yards. I grunt at him. He comes over. He makes a scrape, postures, hair standing up on. It was like middle November. He's trying to, oh, crap, I'm in a new area. I got to assert dominance right away. He's raking branches, quarters right in, and I kill him. That's one scenario. Another is,
were the conditions that day considered a good deer day, or or were
No,
they okay? So it was the combine that was like, okay, I gotta
it
go.
was warmer weather day, light and variable wind, not a good day to be in the woods. I was banking on, I literally got off work and seeing them out there because I was one of the, I'm really a sucker for taking the 15 minutes longer to drive past my property. Just you see something off the road. The farmer's doing this. There might be a guy in there hunting. You never know. You're just trying to get a little bit of intel from the road. And that was like, I gotta go. They're like 3 rolls in, 4 rolls in. I'm like, by the time I get home, they're gonna be real close to that waterway. That waterway kicks right out to me. The combines don't scare these deer, but they do move them. They are going to move from that area because they don't have the cover that they had before. So that was not a good hunting day. Another scenario in October is, like everybody says, you get a cold front in October. I don't care. You get a front. I don't want to say a cold front. You get a front. Any kind of rain, any kind of wind. You get high winds and rain all day, and it's going to chill out in the morning, or it's going to be real windy all day, but it's calm in the morning, or it's been rainy all day and it's going to be calm in the evening. You need to be hunting, and you need to be hunting real tight to a buck bed that's associated to scrapes. There's something about that time of year. If you have a scrape in cover close to bedding, that a buck is going to go towards that scrape. He's going to be up early. And it don't even have to be like a 20-degree drop. It could be 10 degrees cooler. It's been crappy all day, and it's going to, a lot of times after that front moves through, the temperature does drop some. And that little tweak, the does are up more. The squirrels and the birds are out more after that. It's just something about that, okay, the storm's passed and we can go hunt. That was the other October 15th. Right on a transition line, a bread and butter spot for private land where you got heavy cover going into oaks. There's a lot of times if you walk that transition line, there's scrapes along that transition line. And I had found that bedding earlier in the year. I already had a stand hung back there. Got within 100 yards of the bedding. He came out, hit the scrape, hopped the fence, killed him sub 10 yards right there. That was my first buck ever on film. Cool. It was cool. The October 1st one, that was just a freaking nature deal where we had him on cam so many days doing the thing.
That never happened.
And, yeah, that doesn't happen. That was just like, wow, I can't believe this actually worked.
Was that just a completely overlooked area of public that just no one ever walked into?
Very, very small acreage wise, surrounded by corn, not connected to anything. But we went in there and found one of the best buck beds I've ever seen. Marsh ground. He's bedding where a washout happened. So he's going into the washout up into like a dry spot in the marsh. And I don't know how anybody would ever get to him. Just any animals or anything. One would have to go through the water on the backside or drop down in that. And all the scent from that washout is going to draw right to him. It's the perfect buck bed. And we were like, okay, we're going to run a camera here because we found it the year before in October and it was tore up. And we already known that we were too late. Like we were like, the sign is, there's a buck here early. He was firing this place up. He was rubbing trees. He was making scrapes. It's the rut now. We actually hunted it. We seen a forked horn and didn't see much else. And we knew, okay, this is an early season sign. We need to be in here. So the next year we ran a cam and that buck, we had pictures of the deer the year before in that field, but just didn't coincide with that little spot being where he was bedding. And he was there 17 days in a row on cam.
It's so crazy.
The same exact trail, and we killed him on the exact same trail that he went out on for 17 days. So that was just a freaking nature kind of deal. The October 7th buck, that was hot. It was ladybugs were flying. I remember on the video, I'm like, ladybugs are out flying. It's warm. We're gonna go in here. We're gonna get as tight as we can to this bedding area, this buck bedding area we found. It's close to water, in between ag. Went in there, set up. Buck came out way before dark. What only deer I've ever seen drink water, like actually out of a stream. And he drank for a long time, like a minute plus. Had his head down drinking. It was one of those bucks. I was like, if he goes right, I'm not going to shoot him. If he goes left, I'm going to shoot him. And he went left. I was like, he actually went right a couple steps and then looped back around and went left. I was like, oh God, man, but we were losing that ground too. So I was like, we're going to get a buck off that. We had put a lot of work, some food plots, and stuff like that. And, I was like, we're going to get a buck off this ground. So killed one there. Just off of a buck bed that we'd scouted earlier in the year. And the main thing about that time of year that I really like that a lot of people don't talk about is the amount of cover that's there. When you're trying to hunt these buck beds later in the year, you don't have that ground cover. You don't have that leaf cover. It doesn't only help you with sight, it also helps you with sound. The leaves are making noise. It's harder for them to see. I think it also helps with your smell a little bit. There's stuff kind of knocking your scent around, making it a little bit different. But you can get tighter on the bucks earlier than you can later in the year. I think they're off guard for one, and for two, you have all that ground cover, and there's not crunchy leaves everywhere. The bark isn't all dried out and cracky. It's just an easier time to get on top of them on a bed. And I think like you can do that all the way up till maybe the first week of November. And then after that, you get the first couple hard frosts and leaves are all over the ground.
Farms feel completely different after those frosts.
You can even see in the timber twice as far as you did before. The shooting lanes you didn't have before, you have now because the leaves are gone. And I think that makes an impact on how close you can get to the deer, because these deer are laying down. So you just got to think in the woods when stuff's green, if you lay down, you can't see much, but if there's all that shrubbery on the ground is gone, those low branches don't have any leaves on them, you can see quite a bit, you can see pretty far. And especially a lot of times these beds are on kind of hillsides in the Midwest, and you got to think that deer is bedded. And a lot of times you're hunting them in the bottoms, coming up, because you can't come over the top, because that's most of the time the wind's coming over the top in the evening. So you have to go from the bottom up, and he's already elevated. So he has to look through all that canopy to get down to where you're at. But when that canopy's gone, he's like a hawk up there. He's checking out everything. So I feel like if you're going to attack him on a bed earlier, the better, in my opinion. You just have more advantage of getting in there quieter, less visibility for them. And I think that's a misconception about October.
And then excellent point.
Yeah, morning in October is frowned upon, and man, I've had some really good encounters of this close in the morning in October. The buck we called Sunshine. I went in October, hunted him on a cold front, came right into the bedding, walked right past me, sub 10 yards. I passed him. I was funking with my camera. He's probably 20 yards. Battery was dead. I'm trying to put a new battery in there, and he didn't spook, but he seen me, and he exited north. Well, me and my hunting partner go hunt the north end that night. What buck comes out of the north bedding? That deer, and he ends up killing him that night on a food plot. But I had passed him that morning in October, and he had just went north 250 yards and bedded up and exited to the food plot out north. So I told him, I said, if I wouldn't have spooked that deer in the morning, he wouldn't have been up here. You wouldn't even got shot at him.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Well, I think you make a lot of really good points. I think corn, definitely a lot of farms, I wouldn't hold a mature buck when corn's in there. It's holding bucks, and once it's gone, so are they.
I even see a difference in like corn to bean years. If you have corn, the deer bed extremely close to the edge of the timber in that corn. Like sometimes they're just like if someone has like a dam built, basically like a waterway with kind of a dam with a drainage system that goes back into a ditch to kind of hold their field, and that gets overgrown. There's beds all over that. Rubs. They're just right on the edge because they don't want to. It's hot. They don't want to go nowhere. And even early season, you got to be careful getting in there on these deer if they're bedded, if you have corn, because they're right on the edge. They're bedded really close. And you see it like corn years. If you look for buck sign, it seems to be 50 yards in the timber. Brubs, scrapes, bean years, it seems to be deeper into the thicker stuff. And I'm seeing that this year on my new pieces. It's a bean year, and you can see the old sign, the old rub, on the edge, and then now there's nothing there, and it's further in. And you can see where there's tree rubs and old beds, and they're just not in there this year. And you're like, I guarantee that buck probably, he didn't get killed. He's just not comfortable bedding up on this high point because he doesn't have 7-foot corn. He has, 3.5-foot beans.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's a question for you. So obviously a lot of crops are drying out really fast here in the Midwest, and I have to imagine that it's going to be an early harvest or earlier harvest than what we've seen in the past. Do you think my guess is that a lot more bucks are going to get killed versus, because I can remember in the last 10 years, there's maybe been 2 years where they're standing corn deep into November. When I say deep, I'm talking 10 to 15 days into November, maybe 20 days into November. And everyone's like, man, this year was crappy. I didn't see anything. This is hard. And the years it does get picked early, a lot more bucks get killed. So I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I love it when the farmers are out. I want all that shit gone. I want all the beans out. I want all the corn out. I don't want any ag at all. But I do want to be there. If you have a farmer and he's picking corn, you want to be there that first 2 evenings after he picks it. That is like a dinner bell, just for, it might not be bucks, but you want to see numbers of deer, how many deer your farm's holding. Go in there after that they pick. It's just, it's crazy how many deer come out. But powerful. I agree, man. It's when you get into shotgun season and you got corn up, it's tough, man. It is tough hunting.
Yeah, for sure. Which I can't foresee that happening this year. And there's some fields already getting picked where I'm at. The beans are yellowing really fast, which is to be expected this time of year.
Rain, keep getting this rain.
Keep the moisture here.
Yeah. The rain. Well, the rain actually helped get the beans out. The rain knocks off all the leaves on the beans, and they dry out quicker. Which, in theory, you would think beans, they get water, they're going to stay green longer, but it's actually the adverse. This late in the year, the farmers kind of wanted to rain a little bit to get that green out of there, to knock the leaves off, because the beans are ready to go. And man, we've got some piss poor beans in my area this year. That drought, we got some in some areas that they're knee high, and they're still really green. But what's funny is they're still really green, and there was deer on them a month ago, 3 weeks ago, but there ain't deer on them now. The deer are on the acorns, man. And everywhere that I've seen, banner acorn year for my area. Like, really tremendous amounts, like marbles in the timber kind of style. But all my fruit trees did extremely well this year on my home piece here. My peach trees, my apple trees, and all that. And it seems like the years that they do really well, the acorns do really well. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's it's kind of, I was cleaning up a bunch of honeysuckle this weekend, and as I was running it, spraying honeysuckle, I just hear, acorns dropping. And I've seen a lot of red oaks holding acorns where I'm at, and not as many white oaks. There's some for sure, but it should be interesting. I mean, that's just you make such a great point, because the point of being like, the rut's the rut. Okay, well, everyone can kind of figure out, or at least understand how to hunt the rut, but all the nuances of the early part of the season, why I think a lot of people struggle, is because there are so many nuances. Is the acorns dropping like crazy? Yes or no? Is all these different things. So I think you make a good point of being observant and thinking about all these different things. And I also, this is just my perspective listening to you, is you look at things pretty straightforward. I think a lot of guys overthink things. I think people, have to do a rain dance and pull out whatever chart and understand when to go.
Hunting, man, where I'm just like, I had pictures of him 3 years ago on this draw, and now I got pictures of him over here, and you're trying to connect the dots, and I encountered him here, and I'm trying to rope myself back and go to how I used to hunt, and I would be like, if I was that deer, where would I be? Like, where makes sense to hunt this deer, where I'm not going to spook him. I'm going to, what a lot of people don't understand, and what really dawned on me is killing a deer is one thing, but seeing that buck is so huge. That puts so many. If you can watch that deer for 200 yards work through a piece of ground, you have learned so much about that deer. So I used to do like sets where I would do observation sets. I never do that anymore. And this year I'm like, I'm going to go back. I'm going to hunt that spot where I'm about to get really lucky to kill him. But if he's getting up in daylight, I'm going to see him get up and see how he's working, and then figure out, okay, do I think he's going to be back in there tomorrow, and how can I get on him? If you don't see him get up and you can see all that, then you've X'd out that area. You had a shit hunt. You've X'd out 200 said yards of he's not in this area in daylight. Like, it's just, I overcomplicated it, and I put a whole podcast about it. But, are we overcomplicating hunting? And I think part of the reason it's overcomplicating is you have a podcast. You listen to people for 5 years talk about, you got to be doing this. You got to be doing this. You got to be doing this. And you're trying to take pieces from all these really successful guys, and you have a duffel bag full of stuff that and you're only good at like 2 damn things in the whole entire bag. Right. You know what I mean? Like, you're carrying this thing around. I got all this knowledge. I'm ready to kill, but you're only good at doing 2 things in that bag. And in my mind, I'm like, all right, I'm carrying a pocket full of knowledge this year and doing what I'm good at.
I love that.
Tote this bag around of, well, this guy had this buck do this, maybe this deer. No. What do I think this deer's doing? Because you're only going to learn off of the encounters that you have and how you go about them. You can take everybody's topics and learn from them, and maybe that's what you need. But you're going to learn by either messing it up or being successful. One or the other. That's how you're going to learn. And I normally learn by messing up. Straight up. I'm like, well, don't do that again. That was dumb, Yeah.
So. Such an excellent point. And I think if you talk to, we talked to a lot of the same people, but I'll just say most successful guys that come to mind is that same theory right there. Observation sits, laying eyes on them, and not overcomplicating it, and going and trying to make something happen. And I think there's the anomalies where it is something really strange where they do, tie all these pieces together and it works out. And I think that's the anomaly, like that it could happen, but what does work when you do lay eyes on them and you try to make a move, and that's not easy to do either. But I think if you get to your point, if you're able to figure that out, you're right on them.
Yeah. And what I've noticed over the years, you hear these stories, and if someone comes on a podcast and tells a story, most of the time it's some crazy complex, they put the pieces together. But you don't hear the stories of, man, I went out and hunted that pinch and killed, I went out and
it's not a cool story. It's not
killed,
a cool story.
Like that's probably 95% of the deer that get killed in the Midwest is, I was hunting out of my box blind, during shotgun season where I've had good luck before, and out come a doe, and that's 95% of it, and I'm reaching for that 5%, man. I've been tracking this deer for 3 years. We're a mile and a half deep in here. We're on its bed. He's been in here because it's a southeast wind, and now it's a southeast wind. We got a 10-degree temp. I'm trying to do no. I'm just like, okay, where do I need to be to have success? And my summer of scouting and trail cam running has just been, there's nothing worse in my mind of deer hunting than summertime scouting, trail cam hanging. It's awful. Bugs, spiders, it's thick as hell, cockleburs, ticks.
It's so hard to read sign too.
Yeah, you're hanging stuff and you're like, I'm probably gonna have to move this in a month. Like it's just you're like, unless you have historical data where you need to be, and then you're like, I'm gonna hang this here and I'm not gonna get any pictures till October. I got cams out right now that I haven't had a buck on yet, and I'm like, I'm just waiting. There's going to be a giant on there. It's just bake my time. But the whole entire year for me has just come down to what I said in my podcast is I want low pressure on my ground, low stress on my end, and high reward is what I'm going for. That's my plan is I've always had the pressure to kill a buck. I've had a really good run at killing bucks. But this year I'm going to kind of I'm going to be okay with not killing a buck. It's hard to say, but I'm going to be okay with not killing a buck. I just want to hunt. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if I just hunt, I'm going to have more success than I ever have. If I just go back to where I'm not stressing about where I'm setting, I'm just like, yeah, let's try this out. You know, mm-hmm. I've had good luck here in the past. Let's go rip it, you know, and that's how I used to hunt in the past because I didn't know all this extra intel, you know, mm-hmm. but I had more success then than I do now. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm on the deer now, but it's a battle out there. You know, it's an absolute battle. And then you park your truck in the wrong spot and make a bad shot last year and really screw your whole year up. But
it's what keeps coming back in reality.
Yeah.
If it was so easy, it wouldn't be as fun or I should say rewarding.
I think with me hunting this way and with my son hunting, I hope that this is going to be, you know, my favorite year hunting ever, funnest year. And like I said, I hope it rekindles the fire to create content and keep this going, and just take some of the stress off of. I do run a podcast. I have been successful, but I don't feel like I need to be successful to run the show. You know what I mean? Like, mm-hmm. I feel like if I'm going to run a podcast, I need to kill bucks, just straight up.
Makes it real awkward to talk for a whole year.
It makes it hard, and I put a lot of stress on myself and killed smaller class deer than I would have just because of pure fact of I want to get a buck down and mm-hmm. get some content. So
well, I mean, if it's any words of encouragement, I've enjoyed your podcast for a very long time, and some of my favorite all time episodes are from you know things that you've done. So as a listener myself, there's a lot of value there. And I know when you do it for a really long time, you wonder, like, you know, I imagine it feels a little monotonous, but there's still probably someone tuning in for the very first time. They're like, oh, we'll give this a try. And they tune in. They're like, man, I can relate to this guy. I understand what the troubles he's going through. And then I kind of have the same thing going on. So I strongly encourage you. I think you have a great show, and I've enjoyed it for a very long time. But as we kind of wrap things up here, though, you mentioned you have a handful of cameras, more than a handful. You got about 2 baker's dozen of cameras to put out here.
Yeah.
Where do you plan on putting some of those, and what's the timeline of deploying them? Because I think this is there's either people that still have cameras to put out, or B, they find a buck and then they go buy some more cameras because they want to figure them out. So that's the root of this question.
Yeah. So with me being in my situation with the amount of kids I have, I am highly, I love cell cams. I run cell cams. I'm pro cell cam on that side of the fence. I have mostly cell cams out. I have 6 SD card cams. I'm not sure how many I have. I have 25 to 30 SD card cams on the shelf right back here. They're all stacked neatly in a line, ready to go. SD cards are marked, batteries for them. Everything's ready to go. But I'm trying to figure out 2 new pieces this year. And you can look at a map, and you can go in there and try to read sign right now. I didn't have the opportunity to late season scout these places. You can go in there and try to figure out stuff, but you're going to waste a lot of your cameras. So what I'm doing is when I go hunting, I'm going to have a camera or 2 in my backpack every single time. And if I see a scrape, if I see a heavy creek crossing, if I see this, I'm going to throw a cam there. And I kind of flying by the seat of my pants in the SD card cam, but I just want to get it's great to bucks when you can't hunt them. Like right now, you can't hunt them, but I want to get content from the bucks where they're at when I can hunt them. You know, I don't care if it's dark, daylight, whatever. I have the cams out there, so I kind of know my core bucks that I'm going to be able to hunt early at least. So I don't feel like I need any more out there than I have right now. But during the rut, you kind of got to know where these doe bedding areas are. You kind of got to know where if these pinches are actually used by these bucks. And that's where those cams are going to come in. I'm just going to have them with me. I go out, I hunt a pinch, I'm going to throw a couple cams. If I go hunt a doe bedding area, I'm going to throw a couple cams. And I'm also kind of banking on, I am hunting the urban piece, which is kind of public, less cams getting stolen, just straight up, because they're not going to be out there. Everybody's doing their scouting right now. And I feel like this is now and late season is when the most cams get stolen in SD cards, because everybody wants the intel that they didn't put in the work early season, so they steal the SD card or steal the cam, and everybody is out there shed hunting or pulling stands on whatever on public, and they steal the SD card so they get all your year's content for free. But I don't feel like when a lot of people are out there hunting that my cams get messed with a lot. I feel like people are hunting, and they're not scouting as much. They're not running into your cam as much. So I'm hoping that doing that, every year I was losing 5 to 10 SD cards, a couple cameras, and I just don't want to do it. That's, I'm not on public, so hopefully I have every lift 2 I have out is locked and the door's locked, because I'm like, I'm not losing these babies.
No.
These things are prime, but the other ones, I just gonna kind of go with the flow of season and hang stuff. And I'm also gonna let my boy hang some stuff. He
cool.
has that roll of cams. He has a lot of the lower end kind of stuff, and he's gonna be able to say, "Hey, Dad, I want to hang a cam here." And we're gonna hang a cam, and we're gonna see if he gets any picks. And hopefully, he can learn. I'm not gonna say no, yes. I'm just gonna let him hang it, and kind of let him learn by his own failures or successes. Maybe he'll get the biggest. A lot of times, those bullshit spots where he'll probably want to hang a cam would be the biggest picture of a buck all year.
For sure.
But he's really cool. I got him. He has one of my old rangefinders. He has a pair of my old binos. I just want to I want him to feel like he's in the game as much as I am when he's out there hunting, and I'm just not setting him up.
Yeah, that's cool.
I want him to be able to go, "Hey, we're out here. Let's go pull my cam and see if anything's on it." And we can do that, and then we can go back and we can decide to hunt there or not hunt there off of his decision on what's on his cam. Yeah, I think that's going to be really cool. And something that I wish I had when I was 8,
Yeah.
Really, really would have opened my eyes up to stuff a lot quicker. But I know how I learn, and if he's anything like me, he has to fail to learn. He can't listen to someone do something and have success. He has to go out there and figure out the way he can do it. Because most of the time, my season is organized chaos resulting in a killed buck or a couple is how it goes.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I'm excited to follow along with your season this year. Always enjoy doing that. And for folks that have not tuned into the Whitetail Legacy Podcast, where can they listen to it, and when can they expect new episodes?
I'm on every podcast platform you can. Apple is, of course, the biggest download. Spotify is second. But I'm everywhere. I release an episode every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central Time. I missed one episode the last almost 6 years. November will be 6 years. So you can bank on it being there. It's sometimes it's me, sometimes it's a guest, sometimes it's, whatever. I went to the stage of talking to whoever I want to. And I feel like if I'm not enjoying talking on the podcast, other people aren't going to enjoy it. But like you said, I've had people come and tell me, "Oh, I'm starting on episode 1 and going through." And just the transition, if they listen all the way to now, just the transition of me as a hunter in those 6 years is crazy. I go from private land only to 100% public to back to, I'm going back to private. So it's crazy to just in my mind remember kind of the years of what I got going on. And I told my wife, I said, when I'm old, this content will be around. And for me to be able to go back and listen to all that.
Oh, what a trip that'd be.
Oh, what a trip. From episode 1 going all the way through, and you're reliving all those memories and all the stuff that you're out there banging around doing. The Rutcation podcast, I'm doing that again this year. That'll be from the 28th to the 15th, as long as nothing other schedule changes, where I release an episode every single day for 18 days there. So I'll be able to have that. It just be really cool to do. So that's what I'm doing for right now. And my grandkids, my kids, they're going to be able to they're going to be like, "This guy don't know what he wants to do." They listen to all of them. It's just how you grow as a person, and as you grow as a hunter over the years, you definitely change your style. Um, that one year I was putting in food plots nonstop and wasting a whole bunch of time doing that, and I don't have one food plot out this year.
Whoa.
Giant waste of time for me.
Well, I
Works
think
for
that's
some people,
yeah.
but yeah.
That's the point there. I guess figure out what works for you and what doesn't. And I don't know. Every time I put a food plot on a piece of private ground, I always lost access that year or the year after. So I
Oh yeah,
stopped.
done
I
that a
stopped
bunch
doing
too,
that on
man.
private.
I planted an acre of beans 4 years in a row, and I never had a shooter buck in daylight on those beans any time during the whole entire year of hunting them.
That's crazy.
Yep, late season, early season, everything. The only thing I do have success is I have my late season 4-wheeler planted plot. I have that going. Other than that, I didn't do anything big. No winter wheat, big fields, nothing like that, because I just don't have success. I have too much ag around. It doesn't. It's not a
Hard to
draw.
compete. Yeah.
It's hard to compete. The neighbors are, everybody's got ag. It's just the deer got food. That's one thing the Midwest, people wonder why they get the antlers they do. They got hella food out there,
Good.
So unless you got something late season to kind of tweak their arm a little bit, but even late season, it takes like 5 to 8 days of really cold shit weather and then something in daylight finally. It's
Yeah,
like
that's happened so many years where
they're
it's
the very
right on.
last. Yeah.
And then the week after season, it's -20, and they're all just piling in there.
Yeah. Week after season, it's cold as hell, and they're just deer out there like crazy because it's been cold for a long stretch. I got to have snow on the ground for 3 or 4 days straight that's frozen over, or I got to have really, really cold temps for 5 to 10 days, somewhere in there, and then a buck a daylight, and you're like, oh, okay, that's what happened last year. I was able to kill late season, but it was cold for a long time, and then that deer finally daylighted, and then I was like, oh, okay, we'll go in there and try to kill him, and was able to get it done. But I drug it out. I've killed a buck every single month of the season now after I killed that buck last year. So I've killed one October, November, December, January throughout the years now, a nice buck. So it was cool to kill one, late December last year. So.
I love it. Yeah. It's you're figuring out year round. And I think for anyone, I think your podcast too talks about different times of the year. And if anyone that's in the Midwest needed maybe an idea too, or to spark it, I would encourage them to listen to your podcast there. But greatly appreciate your time here. I know you're a busy dude, and good luck this season. And I'm excited to follow along.
All right. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.